My first day as a member of the 501st. It was hot, it was seeming chaotic. Nothing at all like the simulations on Camino. Of course, that was pretty much the way for all of us, wasn't it? All that breeding, all those years of training, it doesn't really prepare you for the screaming nor the blood, does it? Frankly, I'm amazed we survived the first hour, yet alone the first day. Incredibly, the 501st survived the crucible of Geonosis, emerging battle-hardened and ready for whatever the war would throw at us. In the waning months of the Clone Wars, the 501st faced critical missions to the agenda of Chancellor Palpatine. When we arrived at the bombed-out ruins of Mygeeto, our Jedi commander believed that we had been sent to take out a droid energy collector. What Kiari-Mundi didn't know, however, is that our unit of the 501st was really after an experimental Mygeetan power source that the Chancellor wanted for his super laser. Keeping Mundi in the dark wasn't easy, however. The Jedi had become increasingly wary at the Chancellor's doings, and we were on the lookout for the slightest hint of treachery. Just like all of them, though, he never really caught whiff of what was going on until it was far too late. The success of the mission on Mygeeto came something of a revelation for the men of the 501st. Suddenly, we realised that the Jedi could be fooled, and if they could be fooled, they could be killed. As the Clone Wars progressed, more and more ground-based legions found themselves pressed into space combat, including the fighting forces of the 501st. It's been said that the 501st got the best of the war. For months, every hour of our downtime was spent in the simulator, preparing for the time we would face our enemies from the cockpit of a 170. Finally, the day came to earn our wings. The CIS has staged a daring kidnapping of Chancellor Palpatine, and was being escorted from Coruscant by a fleet of separatist ships, with only a few veteran pilots on planet. Many of the 501st were pressed into service to drive off the Sips and buy time for a pair of Jedi Knights to rescue the Chancellor. After disabling the final capital ship, Generals Kenobi and Skywalker took advantage of the opportunity we'd created and rescued the Chancellor. Took all the credit too. We also got the worst. On Felucia, the Sips dug their metal heels into the muck of that alien hellhole and dared the Republic to come in after them. So we did, only to be faced with month after month of flesh-eating diseases, shrieking nocturnal predators, and other sights and sounds that haunt me to this day. Cut off on all we knew, abandoned by our superiors, our only hope was our Jedi commander, Ayla Secura. Without her iron will, I doubt none of us could have got out of the mess with our sanity nor our lives. When her death came, I hope it was quick. She earned that much. When the 501st was finally rotated out of Felucia, Ayla Secura made a point of seeing us off personally, calling us the bravest soldiers she had ever met. It's a good thing we were wearing helmets, because none of us could bear to look her in the eye. When the separatist invasion of Kashyyyk caught the Republic flat-footed, a detachment of the 501st was sent in to stop the bleeding until reinforcements could arrive. It was a textbook suicide mission and we knew it. As we fought our way into Kashyyyk's atmosphere, most of us believed that the only way we'd be getting off this planet was in a body bag. As the 501st finally broke through the Sept blockade over Kashyyyk, I took a long hard look at the battle that was raging over the planet and wondered why so many men had to die for a bunch of walking carpets. Then I followed my orders and turned planetward. When we arrived at Kashyyyk, things were just as bad as we feared. The clankers had us outmaneuvered, outmanned and outgunned by a 5-to-1 margin. What none of us could count on, however, was the Wookiees. We all heard the stories before, but we never fought side by side before them. Never seen them rip apart a droid with their bare hands. They were magnificent. Regardless, this was still a suicide mission until the timely arrival of Master Yoda, until it became a battle, a winnable battle. With the timely arrival of Master Yoda, the 501st was able to hold the line against the Sips on Kashyyyk. We left as heroes. Years later, we returned as conquerors. In our bones, we knew the Clone Wars was almost over. The galaxy held its breath to see which side would make the final daring move. Its fortune would have it the Republic move first. After the Chancellor informed the Jedi Council that General Grievous and the Separatist leaders were hiding on Utapau, General Kenobi gathered an army large enough to capture 3 star systems. When the orders reached the 501st, our morale soared. For better or for worse, this would be the beginning of the end. With the death of General Grievous at the hands of General Kenobi, the Utapau raid had broken the back of the Separatist. Under normal circumstances, this would have been a time for celebration, but our next orders put pain to those thoughts. What I remember about the rise of the Empire is how quiet it was. During the waning hours of the Clone Wars, the 501st was discreetly transferred to Coruscant. It was a silent trip. We all knew what was about to happen, what we were about to do. Did we have any doubts? Any private traitorous thoughts? Perhaps, but no one said a word. Not on the flight to Coruscant, not when Order 66 came down, and not when we marched into the Jedi Temple. Not a word. After the fall of Coruscant and the elimination of the traitorous Jedi, Palpatine's rise to power was completed. In recognition of our service and loyalty to the Emperor, the entire 501st Legion was placed under the direct command of Lord Vader. Armed with deadly new weapons, blazing new ships, and shining new armor, our presence in the galaxy let us know that the days of the old Republic were well and truly over. We were establishing a new era, an era of order and peace. During the rise of the Empire, the Emperor's home planet of Naboo rapidly established itself as a major irritant. A number of Naboo ambassadors were sent home in a various state of dismemberment. Her newly elected queen had broken off diplomatic ties and was considering military options. Clearly, it was a time for a regime change. A change that would be effected by the 501st. Now under the direct command of Darth Vader. Our orders were simple. Infiltrate the capital city of Theed and take out their leader, sending out a clear signal to any potential troublemakers. In the Empire. With the Queen eliminated, Naboo quickly fell in line. It was the first time the 501st was called upon to adjust the planet's government. But it wouldn't be the last. Within a few months, the 501st gained a well-deserved reputation as Vader's fist. Although the Clone Wars were well and truly over, some people apparently did not seem to get the message. The worst case of denial was Gisor Delso, a Geonosian separatist who had somehow escaped Lord Vader's efforts to wipe out the remnants of the CIS. Lord Vader had tricked him to Mustafar and brought us in to finish the job. It seemed like a simple enough mission. But when we saw the fleet of droid ships hovering over the planet, we realized that Delso's denial mechanism were more dangerous than we reckoned. The slight whiff of nostalgia that the 501st had fighting the droid fleet head over Mustafar had already grown sour by the time we've established orbital positions. Now it was time to find out what this was really all about. By the time we made it to the molten surface of Mustafar, it was apparent that Delso had been a busy little bug. All by his lonesome, he had found a hidden droid factory, fired it up and cranked down his own personal army of battle droids. Needless to say, this got the men of the 501st a little hot under the helmet, not because of all that lava. Truth be told, we'd all had our fill of those gearheads during the war. We couldn't stomach the thought of another one. So we blew them up. Blew up the clankers, blew up the factory, damn near blew up the planet. After the destruction of the mining facility, and the thoughts of a second droid rebellion. For the first time in years, the 501st could relax and go about the business of maintaining an empire rather than maintaining one. Officially, there was no clone rebellion on Camino. Unofficially, approximately 20 years after we were created, a special detachment of the Imperial 501st Legion, with orders to eradicate an army of clones specifically bred to take up arms against the Galactic Empire. Our mission commander, who was an expert at the inner workings of Topoka City, was a young bounty hunter named Boba Fett. The bounty hunter left as soon as the battle was over, said something about tracking down a smuggler on Tatooine. After the Camino uprising, the Emperor decided that an army of genetically identical soldiers was too susceptible to corruption. Future troopers would be cloned under a variety of genetic templates, though the 501st itself remained pure, gradually making the Stormtrooper Corps more and more diverse. We never really got used to the new guys. When it was finally finished, the Death Star was the Emperor's favourite toy. It was also the most boring assignment in the galaxy for a Stormtrooper. Tedious inspection drills, hours of guarding impregnable force field generators. Things got so bad that when a prison break erupted in the cell blocks, we were almost happy to have someone shooting at us again. If we only knew what an embarrassing snipe storm we were about to wade into, we might as well jettison the entire detention block into space. After the embarrassment of the prison break, Lord Vader removed us from our comfortable belay and started dragging the 501st across the galaxy in a dangerous hunt for the now missing Death Star plans. Ironically, our punishment turned out to be our salvation. The poor souls that took our place in the detention area were completely wiped out when the Death Star was destroyed. By the time of the raid on Polis Massa, the men of the 501st were getting a little sick of this so-called rebellion. In the past, we'd secretly enjoyed putting down a local insurrection or two, but these rebels were different. They were organised, they were growing, and they were everywhere. The raid on Polis Massa was a perfect example of how things were starting to fall apart. We were supposed to go in, wipe up a small band of rebels, and recover some stolen Imperial plans on an encrypted holodisk. Before we knew it, we were almost overrun by rebel forces, with the holodisk nowhere to be found. Even though the Polis Master raid was a partial success, we had a lead on the whereabouts of the Death Star plans, which suited the 501st just fine. With the information gathered on Polis Massa, Vader had concluded that the stolen plans were given to Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan. We weren't surprised. With all their talks about them being a peaceful planet, Alderaan had been secretly thumbing its nose against the Empire for years. After a brief and pointless battle, we boarded their ship the Tinta 4 over Tatooine, began hunting down the plans, and waited for Lord Vader's arrival. After Vader took custody of Princess Leia, we figured it was only a matter of time until she coughed up the plans. Many of us had been unwilling witnesses to Vader's powers of persuasion in the past. The idea of a pampered little princess resisting his terrible will was inconceivable. When the Death Star was destroyed, about half of the 501st Legion was in the hangar. Of those who made it out, another third were caught in the explosion. I fought with those men for over 20 years. Afterwards, those who survived hooked up with a nearby Imperial fleet, making a retaliatory strike on the rebels' base of Yavin 4. It wasn't the best thought out plan, but we were cut off from our leaders. tired and operating on instinct. If not for our training, we wouldn't have gotten past their orbital defenses. So the battle over Yevon came to an end. I was told that we destroyed hundreds of rebel ships that day, maybe even thousands, but it still didn't make up for the Death Star. By the time we landed on Yevon, whatever shock we felt at the destruction of the Death Star had been replaced by anger. For months we treated the rebellion like a disobedient child, only to be repaid for our tolerance with treachery on an unimaginable scale. I don't remember much of the fighting. I guess we won. After the battle, the surviving members of the 501st caught their breath. The rebels had taken the Empire's best shot and came out standing. Now, it was our time to strike. No one ever complained about the cold on Hoth. We never felt it. Even though we were blinded by blizzards, we could see the end of the rebellion in our blaster sights. Was there only a mirage, perhaps, but on that day, on that planet, our blood ran hot with dreams of victory, melting the ice that stood in our way. As the rebels fled, the 501st gathered around the burning bunker and handed over the chair that shook the stars. The rebellion was done. The Death Star was being rebuilt, bigger than ever. Order had finally come to the galaxy, and no small part thanks to the fighting men of the 501st.